Hey, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Empowerment Through Encouragement. And this is focusing on those with ADD and ADHD. And even if you don't have it, you may be working with or living with or in association with somebody who has this. And it's not to be looked at as a syndrome or a disease or a dysfunction. It's just another element of a superpower, and a superpower energized in such a way that it's different. And as we learn to appreciate the differences around us, we learn to appreciate ourselves even more. So, welcome back. And I am hosted with Dr. Mendy. And Dr. Mendy, please share with us a little bit about what is going on in your neck of the woods and what you're dealing with.
Good morning. Good morning. So this morning we were awakened to the flash flood warning. We're currently in the hurricane Debbie that's flowing through the Carolinas today. So we woke up, tried to take the dog out early. We have a couple of ditches in front of our house. Those are actually full and overflowing. When they get overflowing, of course, the driveway goes next. So again, it's only 8 o'clock in the morning here, and we have this flash flood warning at least until 11 today. So we're getting a lot of water, a lot of flooding, and we did make sandbags yesterday. We made about 8 sandbags, I think it was, we have a back porch area that typically can get flooded. So went ahead and put those sandbags down yesterday. So lots of fun. And let me tell you that talking about exercise today, that was exercise, just getting the sandbags loaded
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So you got your weight training in for the week.
Yeah, exactly. And so did my husband. He was like, I need some help. I was like, yeah, no joke. So
Yeah.
that was a job just to get those sandbags loaded and put together for today. So we feel somewhat prepared, but again, you never know what's going to happen next, right? Especially in these emergency situations.
Exactly. Well, my thoughts and prayers are with you. And I know that those that will be listening and even those that catch this later, thoughts and prayers can continue to go out, especially for those that are in your area and even closer to the shoreline.
Yeah.
That is just, these are the things in life that the storms in life that take us by surprise.
Yeah.
And this all comes back to having or meeting somebody that has ADD or ADHD, and how things can really stir up in a mind in a matter of moments, just
Yeah.
like a storm.
Yeah.
3 days ago, you were enjoying the outdoors and the weather, and you had heard about the storm, the possibilities and anticipation. But yesterday, you actually had to move into a mode that caused you, I want to say there were some moments of discomfort. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and just time consumption. Again, we're trying to carry on our normal daily activities, but now all of a sudden we have to stop. We have to take the time out to go load the sandbags up, to go prepare the sandbags. I have to say, my husband spent a whole lot more time, most of his day, trying to get that done than I did. I was just out there trying to help him fill them up and get them moved to the right place. But then also, you're buying the extra preparation. You're going to get your the gas tank filled up. You're going to get the extra water that we have a well. So if electricity goes off, our well stops. So we always have to have extra water in the house to be able to flush the toilet and stuff. So it's just all that extra preparation that goes into an event, so to speak.
Yeah, and this is so key because this was not even discussed before. So you talked about having the right fuel.
Yeah.
You talked about having the hydration,
Yeah.
the availability of water,
Yeah.
and um, then the amount of rest that you needed to be prepared. So those three elements
Yeah.
help you think clearly, help you do things even better. And last week we talked about tryptophan, the amino that
Yeah.
the body does not produce, and so we need to get that from an outside source. And we talked about, chicken and eggs and peanuts and pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds, and it's a small molecule,
Yeah.
and it's the amino acid that can break the blood-brain barrier. And
Yeah.
so if our children, if our environment, what you're experiencing, didn't have those, if you didn't have fuel, who
Right.
knows? If you get as much rain as what they're talking about,
Yeah.
those gas stations are going to be
Yeah.
in trouble
Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll be wiped out, and then you can't get trucks in or whatnot. And
Yeah.
and if you do lose your power, you're on a well, you're at the mercy of electricity.
Yeah.
And water is so essential, and it is so essential
Yeah.
for for every person, and I want to say especially for a child or an adult that has ADD, because their mind is moving at enormous amount of speeds, and if they can't
Yeah.
express that energy, they're bottled up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just focusing on water just for a moment. So, way back when I was teaching in school, we didn't allow our children, your water consumption for the day was a short trip to the water fountain
Right,
after recess, right?
right.
Nowadays, fortunately, I feel like our culture has come to some realization. Now kids are allowed to have water bottles to some extent, just depending on the school system. But having that water accessible for your child all day long, having your child carry a water bottle wherever they go. Again, same as you, you're probably carrying a water bottle somewhere. You're constantly drinking water, right? I have mine too. So you're constantly have water beside you, and that is so important for all children, especially those with ADD, to keep that water hydration going. Just like you said, again, I just can't emphasize how important that is, and how we need to continue to push our society and push our children to constantly have that hydration beside them.
Exactly. The brain is 80% water.
Yeah.
The first place that the body gets dehydrated is the brain. So if you start to feel dehydration in your physical body, and you feel a weakness, a lightheadedness,
Yeah.
your brain has already been dehydrated. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And this is something that is not promoted or not understood.
Yeah.
And the very thing that controls our body, our mind, our thinking, everything, the brain, if it is not nourished, it
Yeah.
takes 20%, 20 to 30% of the calories that we bring in. So if you're bringing in donuts and Pop Tarts and peanut butter and jelly, if those are your calories that you're feeding your brain, you're depleting it. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if your hydration, if you
Yep.
think a Pepsi or a Coke or a coffee is hydration, I got news for you. It's
It's
dehydration. It's not even on the radar on hydration. It's
yeah.
wet, but so is a mud puddle. But I don't know many people that are out there drinking from the mud puddle.
Right.
Okay?
Got a lot of mud puddle here today, though.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I love that statement, actually. Feeding your brain also, but hydrating your brain is, again, I can't talk about the importance of that enough. And it's easy for me now. I've trained myself to get 64, 66 ounces of water a day. But, if you, I even find myself struggling. So that's a normal for me now. Didn't used to be, but I trained myself to do it, worked up to that amount. But if I go on a trip, if we have an emergency, if something isn't going right, or I'm just in the scramble of life, I can allow that to like slip away easily. And you can easily see the effects of that, of not keeping that water consumption. So, again, just being mindful of what's going on in your life today, and how am I going to get my water? If I'm traveling today, making sure I get that water. Sometimes when you travel, you don't want to stop, so you don't want to drink, right? But again, putting those things in place in your lifestyle to make sure you're constantly getting that hydration.
Exactly. It's so critical for the brain. It is so critical. And, I think one of the things that I know that when I was in school, they gave you that one quick break that you could go after lunch. And I mean, how much water can you drink after lunch? And then,
Especially
you
when the
know,
teacher's standing there counting 1, 2,
yeah,
3,
yeah,
next. It's a time issue, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bathroom breaks. So, I remember a teacher, the first time that I heard the phrase, your inalienable right to go to the bathroom. It is your inalienable right. And I was like, what does that mean?
Right.
And he said, it's your God-given right to go to the bathroom. Nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
And we've traded
Yeah.
our rights
Yeah. Right.
for acceptance.
Yeah.
And everybody that I know that is breathing to go to the bathroom. So if you go twice, I know it's an inconvenience for the teacher, but it's more of an inconvenience for the learning. I mean, that's what the classroom is for.
Right.
And whether it's at home for homeschool moms or whether it is in an institution,
Right.
your body has functions. And when we limit those functions, and this is where having an understanding of the superpower of ADD is our body has a function, a design, a want to move.
Yeah.
We're not special to be put isolated. We're special because we're unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how to express that should not be suppressed because we don't fit in the norm. And this is what I want to encourage those parents that are listening, those kids that are listening, is that, hey, you have a superpower.
Yeah.
And Batman is my favorite superhero
Yeah.
because he's the only superhero that didn't have any extra superpowers. He was just ingenious. And he had a team. He had what was his name?
Robin.
Mr.
He
Well,
had
Robin
Robin.
was the sidekick, but who
Yeah.
is the guy that overtook um the guy down in the basement?
Oh, yeah. The genius guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Anyway, we're getting on. See, this
Right.
is where my ADD just runs after that rabbit. Okay. So, but the idea is, and I got 8 hours of sleep last night, just so you know. But the idea is that getting that hydration, getting that exercise, energizing, using that energy in a
Yeah.
productive manner and making it fun. So I don't know if you had any kids in your neighborhood. Were you able to, I mean, they take part in the sandbagging,
Yeah, no, we don't have kids in our neighborhood. So, but that would have been a good idea. And I have some friends who live in kid-friendly neighborhoods and saw the rain was coming and they're immediately out in their raincoats and their boots. And I saw lots
Right.
of pictures of friends, just kids out playing in the rain. So that was super fun for sure.
Yeah, I had some responses when we talked about including 2 days a week of weight training.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an extreme amount of rate training, but enough to create a resistance in your body where you're actually working, you're feeling that. It's not picking up a pencil, but you could. There have been a study proven that if they just go through the motion in their mind and envision that, they can actually develop more muscle.
Yeah.
So, but my encouragement is that as you apply these things like walking or running, doing 30-second spurts.
Yeah.
I have a trainer downstairs in my basement, and it does 76 seconds of like a normal motion,
Yeah.
and then it does 26 seconds of like a burst.
Oh, wow.
And so this timer goes off for 26 seconds and it's a burst. And what that does is it actually increases what your body's receiving through that activity. And I know that you are ordering or have ordered a under the desk treadmill.
And it came in yesterday. I was so
Awesome.
excited. So I got it set up right away. And boy, that helped me just really. I love it. It's kind of a new, I guess it must be the new trend. You know, we used to have these big, bulky treadmills that we
Right.
all had in our houses, right? I think we got them and then we sold them, and then we got them and then we sold them. This is really compact, sits on the floor, and it's just a walking treadmill. I got on it, and boy, it is really nice. I'm really a fan of it so far, just because immediately I'm able to get those steps in. So such a great thing for the living room while you're watching TV. Keep those steps going while you're reading a book. Even I actually listened to several things on YouTube while I was doing my steps. But easy way to get your steps in for the day. For sure. It was a very economical purchase for a lot of benefit, in my opinion. Because again, I'm trying to do so yesterday, the day before I did upper body. And by the way, when I got out of bed this morning, my muscles in my stomach were hurting so bad I could barely get up, right?
Right.
That's for Monday and Tuesday of just upper body work and ab work. Yesterday was lower body. So again, just trying, and it was those squats in the kitchen, like you talked about, like lots of squats yesterday. But just again, getting your steps in and then being mindful of the weight or the body strength training. So helpful.
Yeah. You know, it is proven that people don't learn in a passive state
Yeah.
because their mind wanders. I mean, if you're sitting on your butt for 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
you're going to be bored out of your mind. You're going to be running like a computer. We are not a computer. We
Yeah.
are a human being. That means that we have the ability to be
Yeah.
and create and to do. And when you're adding activity to the routine, you're wiring and firing new brain cells because you're energizing the body. Now you're getting blood flow going to the prefrontal cortex, and that's your CEO of the brain.
Yeah.
So the blood flow increased to the brain. Now you're able to understand and you're able to absorb the information that's being given.
Yeah.
And when there's an emotion and you're doing something that you enjoy and you're adding your lesson, now you're going to remember. Now you're going to see things different because we're picturing. And what we did with my son was his learning style was completely different.
Yeah.
You put him on a bike or a skateboard and you do math skills, you have him run around and then do some math skills and then run around and do some spelling. His creative mind just rolled.
Wow.
And that's one of the beautiful things that I saw
Yeah.
is that, hey, we are not cookie cutters.
Yeah.
So
Right.
why do we think that treating everybody in the same style? There's a child in there that wants to sit down and just be absorbing. That's what they do. That's how they learn the best. But not all of us learn that way. And
Right.
so I really want to encourage, rather than shove a pill down their throat
Yeah.
and to suppress them and to
Yeah.
keep them from being who they are,
Yeah.
is to look at them in a unique style characteristic and go, what is it that that person really needs?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And actually, I was just writing some curriculum for a couple of homeschool moms this last week. And some of it is just within the phonics program. And it was a lot of, okay, we're learning the letter J sound. So let's do some jumping jacks and say jumping jacks. So I totally, definitely agree with the movement, because as the movement comes, the ability to remember and to just get it in your psyche that, okay, I have learned this as I'm doing the jumping jacks. It becomes a memorable
Right.
event, and that learning actually takes it occurs. I mean, and again, the more you can keep your children moving and learning at the same time is definitely such a benefit for them, because then they're not bored, their mind isn't wandering, they're not reduced into this kind of dormant state, of sitting. And even for us as adults, I'm sure you get about around move more than I do. I still have a job where I have to sit in front of the computer quite a bit. But being able to jump up, take those breaks, having that treadmill right there, run on for 10 minutes, everything is such a value added to your day.
Right. Right. When we talk about adding an emotion to an activity and then remembering,
Yeah.
I want to say I was probably 12 years old when the song YMCA came out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even today at weddings for
Yeah.
for young people,
Yeah.
okay, they're playing that dumb song YMCA at the wedding because it's so fun. And it's like,
Right.
and then people get kind of crazy with they forget
Right.
which way to,
Yeah.
and but it's an emotion that's attached to an
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah. And
And
talking about that, the music aspect
yes,
of it, keeping that music engagement, the rhythm, the beat, the song going along with that. I mean, such a valuable learning time, so to speak.
and you bring that up. So meditation is another thing that you can do for a child with ADD or an adult with ADD, ADHD.
Yeah.
And I continue to bring it up because I don't want I want that phrase. Those initials are not a stigma. They should be a commonplace. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be like, oh, Johnny has ADD and he's hyperactive and he's not going to do well this year. No,
Right.
Johnny has a superpower
Yeah.
and he's so cool because he thinks of all these creative ideas.
Right.
And when I let his mind run wild, he
Right.
comes up with this stuff. Now, how did Johnny do that?
Yeah.
Because he has a different type of meditation. He imagines in his mind that he's in a different place, a different state, a different being.
Yeah.
And he's created a hero in his mind and he's used his creativity. So, meditation. So, when people told me about meditation in the beginning, I'm like, I don't do it right because as soon as I close my eyes, I'm thinking about all the 100 things that I've got to do, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I started to do like a meditation was just to close my eyes, put my hands on my chest and breathe in through my nose and hold it and then slowly exhale it. So I'd hold it for 5 seconds and then I'd slowly exhale it and take 8 seconds. Now I have to concentrate. Now I'm meditating. Now if I got some different music on, now
Yeah.
I'm really having to get into this mindset. And the hardest part about meditation is just doing it every day.
Yeah.
And meditation can be seen in multiple ways. You don't have to sit in the lotus position and hold your index finger to your thumb and hum. But the humming, what it does is it distracts you from the environment that's around you.
Yeah.
So even if you don't hum, no big deal. But
Right.
it is just getting quiet and just absorbing what is going on inside of me that I can become aware of who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And this is a process. When I would ask my son, so instead of just telling him what he needed to do, I'm like, what is it that you'd like to do and why?
Yeah. That's good.
You know?
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
yeah, I think he was 3 years old and we had one of those light type homes, those plastic houses.
Yeah.
He's out in the yard in his diaper, big boy pants at that time.
Right.
And he had his little hammer tucked into his big boy pants and he's pounding on the plastic roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his mom comes out and says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm fixing the roof." Duh. That's what dad does, because I did a lot of roofing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it is allowing the creative mind to
Yeah.
roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I love that. No, I think I just wanted to give a bit of a historical context because I think it was Roosevelt who actually said to the Department of Education at that time, I need factory workers. And at that particular time in our society, we were just beginning to create steel. Steel had just become, so there were large factories doing steel. Oil had just come in to where we're just now the cars coming around. So now we're creating gasoline, creating cars. So lots of factories are going up to be able to move America forward, so to speak. But at the expense of that was people's lives who had to be in a place, repetitively do the same thing, a factory workers doing the same thing. I had to work in a factory. I worked in the Pepsi factory when I was in high school, or I mean, when I was in college. And I would go to school during the day. And then at night, I would go to the Pepsi plant. And it's so repetitive. Like we're literally just pulling plastic bottles off of a conveyor belt all night long. So you're not thinking, you're
right.
not doing anything. So that's what factory work is. It's just doing a repetitive motion with no thinking involved. And at that point in time, when they sat kids down in the public school, when they sat down, put them into that mode of just repetitively do the same thing, it was because of a command at that time that said, I need factory workers to push America forward. So I see us in a totally different place now in our society, but yet some of our systems have not caught up to where we are now. Now we can potentially become a nation of entrepreneurs. One thing I love about Israel is when you walk the streets of Israel, there's no big Walmart. There are local entrepreneurs with their local shops everywhere. Same
Right.
thing in Mexico. Lots of local entrepreneurs with their shops everywhere. So we have the opportunity now in all types of avenues to really focus on entrepreneurship. So I would love to see that shift continue and our moms raise their kids out of that factory mentality we're talking about today and
Oh,
just really how to push them because ADD children are pushers of that innovation. They are the ones who have the energy, the insight, the ability to see proactively. So it's really so exciting. And if we can just help moms understand, don't put your kids in this mold, but really allow them to flow out of allow what's in them to flow out.
yeah. And I'm an advocate for education. I'm not an advocate, and I know you're in the school system. I am not an advocate for schools. I'm
Yeah.
an advocate for education. And I forget who it was that said, "Don't let your schooling get in the way of your education."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was Mark Twain or who, but and what I mean by that is that, just like you said, those kids, especially for somebody like me with ADD and ADHD, I went into a business when I went to work for somebody and I gave them my experiential resume. I remember getting hired by a company called Quality Farm and Fleet, which now TSC bought.
Yeah.
And when I went in for the interview and I told them all the things that I'd done, and I was only 18 at that time, they said, if you've done, no, I was 19 because I was already a welder. They said, if you've done half the things, we were either so full of BS, a belief system. I don't know what you were thinking, but if your belief system was so intense, if you could do half the things that you said you do, we knew you would be an exemplary employee. Now,
Wow.
when they hired me, minimum wage was like, I don't know, $3.10 an hour,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I was working for Quality Farm and Fleet during the morning hours. And then I was working at a pizza shop when I got done. So I'd
Yeah.
work from 6 to 2:30. And at 2:30, I'd dart over to the YMCA, take a shower, get to the pizza shop by 3:30, and then I'd work till midnight. And then I'd go home, and it was a half an hour. But after about 3.5, 4 months, I got called into the office of Quality Farm and Fleet, and they said, "We hear you're working at a pizza shop. Why?" I said, "Well, because I can, and I need to make more money than this $3.10 an hour."
Right.
So they said, "What we're going to do, we're going to take you full time,
Wow.
and we want you to focus on working here so that your energy." Now, I had a lot of energy,
Yeah.
but the idea is that, and I bring this up, is that every place that I went to work for, I always wanted to excel. So when you have somebody that has that extra energy and that ability and creativity,
Yeah.
don't allow it to be suppressed. The majority of the population is trained to work in industrial revolution.
Right.
That model is still rolling. For a kid with ADD or an adult with ADD, ADHD, they need change. That's their creative identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to say, if you're listening and you have that, embrace it,
Yeah.
because you're the creators, you're the entrepreneurs, you're
Right.
the people that are going to move the marker forward and be innovative. So
Yeah.
celebrate that.
Yeah.
Just because you're different in one area. Look, I was different, and I am honored that I graduated in the top. I was in the top 50 of my class when I graduated.
Yeah.
There was 54 of us. So I wasn't, academically the most
Right.
likely to succeed
Right.
because of my academic, my grade point average. I think
Right.
I had a 2.25 grade point average in high school,
Right.
but it didn't infuse me. It didn't inspire me.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
why continue to do things that don't inspire you, if you just feed your passion and
Yep.
feed your fuel and do the things and become the creative. You said your husband is in construction
Yeah. He's a
and he
big.
has ADD.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
couldn't do the same thing over and over and over and over. He'd get bored out of his mind.
Exactly.
He's
Exactly.
constantly doing different projects,
Right.
different challenges.
Yeah.
He's seeing different environments, different
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
different chemicals being brought together. And
Yeah.
he's seeing how one person works well with the other person and they work in this environment. And
Yep.
those things go through his mind, and
Yep.
he's a genius at it.
Yeah. Yep. 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 It's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
fascinating to see, but you're absolutely right. You hit that nail on the head. Exactly. So it's fascinating to see, but yeah.
Now, when you give him the right fuel,
Yeah.
and when I say the right fuel, I mean the right food, the right hydration, and the right sleep.
Yep.
I want to say he is probably unstoppable.
Yeah.
Now you give him the ability to make better decisions at a moment's notice, because just like you are having this
Yeah.
expanse of water,
Right.
you have to think on a moment's notice.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. I love that. I just really want to encourage those living with someone who's ADD to recognize exactly what you're talking about. Because I feel like a lot of times we can see that as a negative. I mean, my husband does talk a lot and he has a lot of energy. So sometimes I had one of his clients actually said to me sometime, well, how do you deal with his talking all the time? But when you recognize it as valuable, like
Right.
I recognize it as valuable, like one of us has to talk and one of us has to be quiet. One talks, one listens. If you have that dynamic, you're good. If both talking nonstop, you got a problem, right? You got to work it out. But I recognize that as, you know what, his talking can actually negotiate a lot of situations for us because he learned to talk and to be proactive as a communicator. I always send him to negotiate a deal for us. Whatever we need, no, you got to go negotiate that deal for us because he's learned to talk and communicate well because of the energy he's harnessed. And again, I've talked about this before, but his energy really keeps the household going through the night. When I get up a little bit early and I'm done usually by 8 o'clock, he can carry that energy right on through 12 o'clock at night, and just finish up those household chores, blah, blah, blah. So valuing that energy and not being negative, even for moms with children, like really look at the amount of energy, value that, harness it to guide it, but don't always put that as a negative. I wish you'd sit down and be quiet or whatever. So
Yeah.
really having that mind shift.
Yeah. And that appreciation, like you were saying, the appreciation for the differences.
Yeah, right.
Because if everybody was like me, well, world would probably be a perfect place. But anyway, if everybody were like me, I'd be arguing with them all the time. I'm like, well, why can't we do it like that?
Right, right.
So, um, and perfection it's overrated. So, but and I say that all in humor, is that I wouldn't, I wouldn't want to change anything about me in that respect, because it's helped me to be able to snap, to go, okay, we need to move here, we need to move that, we need to do this right now. No questions, we just got to do it.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Yeah,
and growing up in that environment and appreciating the gift, and also how I use that energy and how I'm bringing in those things. And once you can't unknow. So here, key thing, get, the amino acids that your body can't produce, and get that through your food supply. Make sure you're getting good calories, especially
yeah,
for somebody with ADD. Their mind is moving
yeah,
many, many miles a minute,
yeah,
miles a second.
right.
The hydration,
Yeah,
good hydration, not
yeah,
sugary stuff. You feed your kid sugary stuff, high fructose corn syrup. I mean, that's just junk. I'm just going to say it's just junk.
yeah,
And you can't convince me. Now that I know, I can't unknow.
yeah,
And now that you've heard, you can't unhear.
yeah,
And appreciate your value, appreciate who you are,
yeah.
and exercise it out. Take that energy and make it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep learning and growing one small step at a time. Like it's baby steps, honestly. Every day, just do a little bit more. Just like me, ordering the little step thing, the walker for under the desk. That was just another step forward for me to be able to enable myself to get those steps every day, especially when you got a hurricane outside your house. You've got to have some way to get the walk in. We don't live in a neighborhood that has a lot of very nice sidewalks. We're not set up like we're kind of out in the country with a long driveway and, woods all around. So I don't have that supreme environment for walking. So just enabling yourself to do those things, to have the exercise, the ability to get the exercise or to create that atmosphere. You say you have a gym in your basement, putting those things in place for yourself. And even if you need to, like I said earlier this year, when I had never worked with a trainer before, but I was like, no, I'm going to do something different because I've got to accelerate and propel myself. I can't just keep sitting here
Right.
doing nothing because
Right.
that is not helping me move forward. So partnering with a trainer to have her teach me and hold me accountable was huge.
Right.
So think about that in every aspect of your life. And maybe it's a nutritionist that you need to come into partnership with, just to look at your diet and say, what is fueling my body
Right.
effectively? What is not fueling my body effectively? Like we just downloaded that Yucca app that gives you huge insight into what you should and should not be eating. But just beginning to bring awareness, baby steps, one step at a time. And believe it or not, those small steps go a very long way. And I also do want to back up on the school system. We do have a lot of school systems now, private schools, Montessori schools that are allowing their children to. I actually did a teacher internship in this school, And they had their children active from the moment they walked in the door to the moment they left. They didn't have seats. They never sat down. They were constantly in woodworking. They were doing animal care. They were doing gardening, but they were learning academically along the way. But there are those schools with those environments that you can get your kids into, recognizing every child's unique. Every child has a unique type of learning style, and how to accommodate that is huge.
That is a topic by itself. The learning style. Every child has a learning style. We could do an entire series on that. I'm positive.
Yeah.
With all the experience that you've seen in that, and it's appreciating those kids' identities. So thank you for that. That's a great way to bring this to a close. And I just want to encourage our listeners. Number one, you're not in this alone.
Yeah.
You're not the only one that's experiencing this. There is a network of people, a network of communities that are exercising these principles.
Yeah.
And like Mandy said, it is the small steps that create that journey. The first step of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Yeah.
And so be encouraged.
Yeah.
And next week, join us back. We will have another hot topic on navigating through the superpower of ADD, ADHD, and how you can take back the control and harness and utilize the power that your child or you have
Yeah.
in a positive, productive way.
Awesome.
Okay.
Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week.